Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Scotland and we're going to continue on with this little mini-series that I've entitled Crazy Beers for 10 Years that I've been making to celebrate 10 years of the Rampant Lion Reviews channel. We've been doing some really interesting stuff on this little mini-series so far, and this one should hopefully be no exception to that rule. But yeah, for this review then, we are going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a good few times before. They are still a relatively new addition to the Scottish beer scene, and if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're best known for their different kinds of, you know, lighter, more sessionable styles of beer, but every so often they throw out things that are a little bit bigger and they tend to be pretty damn good actually, and this beer is going to fit into that particular category. It's a style that I haven't tried from this brewery before, but a style that I very much enjoy, and this one has a little bit of a twist to it that I don't think I've had in this style before. Definitely not specifically, but even beyond that, when I think a little bit more generally, I don't think I've had this particular twist with this style of beer. So needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then we are going to head over to Edinburgh. We're going to go to Leith to be specific, and we're going to have a look then at another beer from the wonderful Newbarns Brewery. So this particular beer is called Scotch Wine of Barley. It comes in at 10.5% ABV, and this one, as the name suggests, is a barley wine, and from what I gather, this one is a little bit more of a kind of old school English style barley wine, and it's aged as well in Fettercairn whisky barrels. And Fettercairn, if I'm not mistaken, are a Speyside distillery, and I've had their whiskies once or twice and they always tend to be pretty good actually. I do love a good Speyside whisky. The smoothness and kind of sweetness you get out of those ones is something that really appeals to me. But as I've mentioned to you on the channel many a time, I'm a huge fan of barley wines, and to see Newbarns do one of their first barley wines actually, I think is pretty interesting too. Apparently this is basically a barrel-aged version of one that they released back in 2021, but unfortunately I didn't get to try that particular beer. But yeah, the plain dark beer was the first really strong thing that I tried from Newbarns. It was great, and then the barrel-aged version of it was really, really nice as well. But yeah, Newbarns, great brewery in my experience. Try their Pilsners, the Oat Lager is one of my favourite beers that they've done, and the Pale Ales are always really damn good as well. But yeah, that would be my recommendations from this brewery. But always cool to review new stuff from them, so let's crack on with this review and see what this one is going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Newbarns Brewery before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there if you want to see more reviews. Do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can of course check out the playlists of beers from different countries. This one can be found in the Scottish playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to quite regularly at the moment, and we will no doubt add more to it in the future. But check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, and yeah, keep an eye out for more Newbarns stuff coming, because I really do enjoy what these guys are doing. But yeah, anyway, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a wee bit about Newbarns Brewery once again. So, Newbarns Brewery was founded back in 2020, and these guys are based in Leith in Edinburgh. So the four friends behind this brewery are Emma McIntosh, Gordon Mackenzie, Johnny Hamilton and Freddie Biexit. So Gordon and Emma are a couple, and they moved down to London from the east coast of Scotland back in 2012. Now, they hadn't actually planned on becoming brewers, but Gordon started work at Siren Brewery in 2013, while Emma started working at Kernel Brewery in early 2014. But they had met Freddie back in 2012, just before he began working at Beavertown Brewery, where he was working as a sales account manager. But Johnny also worked at Beavertown, and he was in charge of their temp Olympus project. But Gordon later went on to work at Kernel Brewery as well, and you can see that these guys, just from that little section of the history part of the video, they do have a hell of a pedigree behind them. But fast forward a few years to 2018, Gordon and Emma decided that it was time to return home to Scotland, and they'd always wanted to start up their own brewery, and they decided to actually put together a plan, start developing some more recipes and things like that, and just go for it. But by the following year, Freddie and Johnny had joined them in Edinburgh, and it was time for them to actually put the things together officially, and they founded Newbarns Brewery. But the branding that these guys use is inspired by a bunch of old beer mats that date from between the 1940s and 1980s, and it was Emma's dad that actually found them at an auction and showed them to the guys, and they loved it. But apparently these guys, or well, I say apparently, they do focus on the more sessionable styles of beer, such as lagers and pale ales, but of course in recent times they have been experimenting a bit with heavier beer styles too. The plain dark beer, as I say, is the first one from memory that I remember them doing that was north of 8%. Most of the beers tend to be around the sort of 4 to 6% mark from what I've seen. But yeah, they've been playing a little bit with different barrels and things like that, and I don't know how far they're going to go with this. At the moment, they're kind of sort of sharing their brewery a little bit with Donzoko Brewing, who moved up from Hartlepool in England, and I think they are just gradually working over time to build up the capacity of the brewery and stuff like this too. But as of August 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 100 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and like I said, it's lagers and pale ales and stuff like that you are going to find from this brewery for the most part. But every so often you'll get something a little bit crazier like this, and as far as I'm concerned, long may that continue. So yeah, Scotland's basically Newbarns Brewery are Scotland's answer to Kernel Brewing down in London, and the stuff they're doing is a really great quality. The pale ales, the oat lagers, and the different pilsners and stuff that they're doing are really top stuff. But yeah, that's everything I can tell you about Newbarns Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a little look at the beer itself, but first I'll just give you a wee look at the artwork on this one. I have to say this is once again very classic from Newbarns. I do love this kind of old school style that they have, but there you can see the Newbarns Brewing symbol in the gold there. The camera is probably going to hate this can just because it's a little bit shiny and things, but this is a 330ml can. It's the same kind of size as a Red Bull one. We've seen a number of breweries in Sweden using these cans, not so much in Scotland so far, so this is kind of interesting for me to see this one. You've got a gold top on the can there, which looks nice, and again it matches what's going on with this one, and it also tells you a little bit about Newbarns Breweries, well, this particular beer from Newbarns Brewery on the back. Sorry, I thought it was going to say a little bit about the brewery itself, but no. So it says on the back then, Scotch wine of barley, barley strong ale. This beer is a barley wine brewed with Golden Promise barley and aged in fetter cairn whisky barrels for 14 months. It's old school, sweet, sticky and decadent. Warming and rich, you'll get an intense malt sugar, baking spices, custard and some strikingly pineapple-y top notes from the barrels. And yeah, apparently it's best before the 8th of February 2033. So I could have kept this one for the 20th anniversary of the channel actually. But yeah, that would be quite interesting. If it's an old school English style barley wine, it would work quite well for aging, but if it's an American barley wine, I don't know if it would, to be honest with you. But yeah, this could be a pretty special one actually. But yeah, lovely artwork on this one once again. 10.5% English style barley wine aged in fetter cairn whisky barrels from, they're kind of just west of Brechin if I remember rightly. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what it's all about. 10.5% old school kind of English style barley wine, I guess we could say in this case. But yeah, let me just get my finger under the thing there, and there we go. So, if memory serves me rightly, I bought this beer at Valhalla's Goat Through in Glasgow, and it just kind of caught my eye because I hadn't seen a barley wine from Newbarns before. So I got quite excited about that when I saw it. I was actually going to get a different beer from them. Then I saw the Barleywine and I was like, nope, this one. And, you know, I certainly don't regret that. So, yeah, as you can see, beer is out and in the glass, and before the head disappears, we'll just have a proper look at this. So, you've got about a half finger of a frothy, I would say light kind of fawn coloured head on this one. It is fading away quite quickly to be just a thin foamy layer, and I think we'll be left with just a kind of bigger ring around the edge of the glass there. But you can see medium-sized bubbles sitting on top of the liquid there, and then you've just got a little bit of a more foamy, bubbly character just up toward the top of the head there. But yeah, this one looks properly old school actually. This looks really, really nice. So in terms of the colour of the beer, let me just have a wee look at this. In terms of the colour, if I shine the light through this, it's actually very much like an old school West Coast double IPA, something like this. Yeah, lovely, very dark amber colour to it. I think on the camera to you guys it's appearing a little bit more red. You could probably also describe the colour of this one as being like a kind of unstained mahogany. But it looks absolutely beautiful. There's very little in the way of visible carbonation visible in this one. But it does look absolutely it looks fabulous, and you can see it's clear as well, so it's obviously been filtered. But yeah, awesome looking stuff. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts that you put into the beer can affect its colour too. And when it comes to a barley wine, with it being a more kind of brown beer, the barrels and stuff can play a decent role in determining the colour of the beer too. But the darker amber colour that this beer has, the very dark amber colour that this one has, the mahogany type character, that does excite me, to be honest with you. As you'll know if you've watched the channel for any length of time, I'm a huge fan of my big brown sugary beers. Scotch ales, doppelbocks, Belgian quadruples and barley wines. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to really say about the appearance of this one. We can have a little look at the aroma and see what it has in store for us. But nothing madly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance when you consider the style. But yeah, really looks like an old school West Coast barley wine, West Coast double IPA for me. So aroma time, let's do this. Ooh, it smells lovely. I'm going to say straight away, it's not the most pungent of barley wines that I've come across in terms of its aroma. But yeah, it does have a lot of kind of old ale type characteristics to it. And, you know, old ale, to be honest, is a little bit of a relative term because there are quite a few different kinds of old ales. But yeah, it does remind me a little bit of an old ale as well as an English barley wine. So yeah, it's really smelling quite nice, this one, I have to say. So it gets a big thumbs up from me. This is going to be a really nice beer to try. You can tell that straight away. But it gives you everything you'd expect. You've got a little bit of the Speyside barrel in this one. It's not too pungent, if you like. It's not too kind of prominent in the aroma. But you've got lovely big sweet brown sugary notes. This one you still get a little bit of the kind of hoppy character in there from the green component, and you've got lovely big oily fruity characters too. But yeah, this one for me is it kind of straddles the line between English barley wine and an old ale, to be quite honest with you. Just as a technical thing, the barley wine is actually the kind of big brother of the double IPA. So you've got a family of beers, pale ale at the bottom, IPA, double IPA, and then barley wine. These beers are all interrelated through their malt to hop ratios. The modern triple IPA and quadruple IPAs that you get, I believe they take the hop to malt ratio of the double IPA, and they essentially just put more malt in the thing, and thus you've got, you know, you have more hops. So it's essentially just the triple IPAs and quadruple IPAs are essentially, from a brewing perspective, souped up souped up double IPAs, but then yeah, the Barleywine is technically a completely different style because of that malt to hop ratio. The difference for me between an American Barleywine and an English Barleywine is simply that the English Barleywines tend to be a bit more roasty and toasty, the bready character is a bit more grainy, and the fruits are a little bit drier in their character. The American ones, that's got big oily brown sugars, very smooth malt base, and lovely oily fruity characters. So yeah, that's one thing that you're going to notice about these styles. But this one is most definitely English barley wine because of the dryness and stuff. But yeah, let's just break the aroma of this one down a wee bit and describe that for you more in depth. So the backbone of the beer, the first thing that's going to jump out at you is the woody barrel. You can smell that lovely, slightly dry European oak coming out of this one. So yeah, lovely little bit of a dry European oaky character coming out of this one. You've got a nice little bit of vanilla in there too, which is great. So yeah, a little bit of vanilla, a nice little bit of dry European oak, and then you get the spirit layer, which is kind of interesting. So for me, the Fetter Cairn whiskey in this one, it smells as if it's a slightly peaty Speyside, this one. It's really nice actually. So yeah, for me, the whiskey barrel that you get out of this is very much nice and dry. But yeah, the whiskey itself has a little bit of dry peat to it, lots of oily brown sugars, and then you also have a little bit of a kind of grassy nature to it, and like oily pears and stuff like that. Yeah, the way that this beer goes together from that perspective is really, really very nice. But yeah, I think it's been really, really cool to just smell that. I mean, a Fetter Cairn as a distillery, I think, yeah, I've had the whiskies once or twice. I don't remember them being quite as peaty as this, right enough. I remember them being more oily and smooth and sweet. So to get a little bit of peat out of the spirit layer in this beer is pretty interesting. But yeah, the barrel, the woody side of the barrel, and the nice kind of spirit on top of that is forming the backbone of this beer. Above that, though, you actually start to get the things out of the malt base. So let's focus on that for the moment. So for me, above that, you're getting a lovely big kind of you're getting a little bit of a kind of almost like rye bready bread crust to this one. Then you've got a kind of like brandy or cognac soaked fruit loaf kind of thing coming out of the beer. Yeah, so brandy or cognac soaked fruit loaf, and that, yeah, that, as I say, that goes together really, really nicely. And then above all of that, you start to get the big brown sugary characters out of the beer. There's maybe a tiny little bit nutty character within that kind of brandy soaked fruit loaf type thing, and then yeah, you've got the brown sugary characters coming out of it too, which are lovely. So for me, the brown sugary notes, you have got a little touch of a leathery brown sugar in there, which is usually an indicator of a slightly longer wort boil when it comes to barley wines. You've got a little touch of a leathery brown sugar in there. Above that, you're getting this big sort of fudgy, toffee type note, and then you do get a wee tiny touch of like treacle or something in the middle of the nose there, a little bit of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotch too, and the slightest little hint of biscuit. But Golden Promise as a malt, you know, that's what they're using in here. Golden Promise has this, yeah, really oily Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy type note to it, and you can smell that straight away in this particular barley wine actually. But yeah, it's really sweet and brown sugary, this one, not too dry in that sweetness either, but yeah, big and oily and kind of slightly dry. In terms of the the malty side of things on the barrel, I think that's everything we need to say. On the hoppy side of things then, the green component, for me, a barley wine, depending on how old it is of course, is going to still have a significant green component to it, but in this one you don't get all that much. You've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there, and a little bit of herbal character. But you can smell with this one, a lot of the green component has dropped out of it. But we'll see if that is a little bit different in the flavour. But yeah, nice little bit of floral aromaticity there too, not too pungent. Then you've also got a nice little bit of an oily, grassy sort of thing coming out of the beer too, which I think is really very nice. So yeah, aroma wise, this is absolutely lovely. I have to say, I think this is pretty awesome. On the hoppy thing, you know, the hops of course take a back seat, everything else, but the hoppy character just gives a little bit more depth. The fruity nature of this one, I think, is also absolutely lovely. So for me, the fruity side of this beer, you've got big oily peary notes to this one, a lot of sultana for sure. So yeah, lovely big kind of oily sultana type notes, big oily pear, and then you do have a little touch of red fruit to this one. There's a wee bit of fig for sure. There's a little bit of blackcurrant in there, and there's maybe like the teeniest hint of like a little bit of cranberry or something like that. So yeah, cranberry, blackcurrant, and a little bit of fig. But then yeah, oily pear, a little bit of dry apricot, and a wee bit of a kind of sultana type quality coming out of this one. So yeah, aroma wise, this is just a big oily sweet thing. Yeah, the way it goes together, I think, is really very nice. So aroma wise, this gets a big thumbs up from me, and it just makes me really curious to see what this one has in store for us. And yeah, the barrel, the only thing that I would say surprising about this for me is that the Fetter Cairn is showing as much kind of peaty character as it does, but then the more that you smell of the beer, the sweeter the whole thing gets. So yeah, let's leave it at that for the aroma though. Let's have a taste of this thing. So this one is the Scotch wine of Barley, a barley-aged barley wine, an English style one, aged for 14 months in Fetter Cairn whisky casks from the Speyside region, and this beer comes to you from Newbarns Brewery in Edinburgh, big 10.5% monster. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that's a beautiful beer, right up my street, absolutely right up my street. Yeah, this is, I'm just going to say straight away, this is pretty awesome. So big thumbs up to the guys at Newbarns Brewery for this. I wouldn't have expected anything less, but yeah, this is, as I say, it just ticks all the boxes for me. A big, sweet, oily, brown, sugary bugger of a beer. It really is good. So, yeah, for me, the fruity, oily side of things in this one is it's the way that the oily side of the beer, the fruity side of things, and the barrel all come into together. This is just so silky and smooth. Silky, slick, oily and smooth. It's awesome. It really is. I enjoy the plain dark beer. I really did enjoy the plain dark beer and the barley's version of that. Those were awesome. But I think this one tops it for me, and that's just a personal taste. You know, the smoother kind of brown sugary sort of thing has always trumped the more roasty, toasty black beers for me. I would love to see these guys do, you know, a 160 shilling. I'd love to see them do something like that. You know, a big strong 160 shilling would be awesome from Newbarns. Because, you know, just going by how they've done this one, I think they could do that style very well too. But yeah, this gives you everything you want from an English barley wine or an old ale. I think it's kind of got a bit of old ale character to it, this one as well. Yeah, so let's just break this beer down and describe the flavour a bit more in depth for you, as we always do. So the middle third of your palate then, you get that lovely, smooth, kind of drier, European oaky type character coming out of the beer. And so the oaky flavour, as I said, that, you know, American oak is a lot more smooth and vanilla-like for me, whereas European oak is just that little bit drier. Different species of tree, of course, but at the back of that middle third of your palate, you get the little bit of the drier character of the oak, and you can feel that it smoothens out the further forward on that middle third of the palate that you go, and then you get a wee touch of a You get a wee touch of a more vanilla-y type character coming out of it too, which is great. So yeah, on top of that, you're getting the layer from the spirit too, and the spirit in this one is really nice and just thick and oily. So yeah, and it's Speyside all the way. So for me, Speyside whiskies, I've said, always very smooth, a little bit brown sugary leaning, and just, you know, a little touch of nutty and things. So that spirity layer that you get a lot of kind of, you know, you do get a little bit of a kind of butterscotchy, kind of oily toffee note out of it. There's a little touch of a more dry peaty character further back in that spirit layer too, and then further forward you're getting wee touches of, like, you know, oily pear. It's interesting they say pineapples. You do get a little bit of a bright kind of dry pineapple at this one, but yes, sultanas, pears, and things like that for me within the spirit layer in this beer. But yeah, you've got the wood, then you've got the spirit, and then above that you actually start to get the flavours from the malty base itself. So yeah, the first layer of that malt base is like a, pardon me, a kind of sweet brown bready bread crust. It's really like that, and then above that you've got a more kind of fluffy bready layer. So the kind of fluffy bready layers that come out in this one are interesting, because it is very much like the kind of bready layer that you get in the middle. The bready layer that you get in that middle third of your palate, it has this almost like brandy or cognac soaked character to it. It's like, yeah, brandy soaked, cognac soaked, fruit loaf, fruit cake, fruit roll type thing. That's what you're kind of getting out of this one. Further forward in that middle third of your palate, when you get a little bit of a drier, nuttier character coming out of it too, which I think is great. So for me, yeah, that goes together really, really very well. And yeah, the nuttiness just kind of lingers there into the aftertaste, and it builds a good bridge between the kind of barrel and the barrel and the spirit and the actual malty side of the beer. So yeah, you've got that fruit loafy type character coming out of this one, and then above that you get a little bit more of a, you do get a little bit more of a kind of how would we say, you do get a little bit more of a, above that you get a little bit more of the kind of brown sugary characters coming out of this one. So there's a very slightly like dry, there's a kind of dry leathery layer above the kind of cakey, bready sort of character there. So yeah, that almost leathery but very sweet toffee and fudgy type layer. So it's like a leathery, fudgy, toffee type layer of brown sugar that you get on top of the kind of fruit loaf type thing first. And then yeah, above that you start to get, above that layer you have maybe a very tiny hint of like a toasty brown sugary layer, and then you've got a bit of like a Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing, and then a straight up just like sweet caramel in the very dead centre of your tongue. And that is of course from the alcohol in this beer, 10.5%. It's not the heaviest of barley wines that you're going to come across, but you certainly do have a little bit of that kind of stronger alcohol type thing coming out of this one. But as you move out from that very kind of epicentre of booze in the middle of your palate, you get a little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing, and some drier nutty characters pushing their way out, and a little touch of vanilla too. But I think that describes the middle third of your palate in this beer, and that is where most of the complexity is for sure. So let's have a little look at the back third of your palate then. So the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of a kind of bready build up in there. There's a wee bit of a more kind of wholemealy, brown bready character in the base, but then you start to get the sweeter, like brandy soaked, cognac soaked fruit loaf type thing in there. So you get that, and then of course you're on to the back third of your palate. As I've often said, the back third of your palate is going to give you similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities And do remember that trend with your palate, that sweeter flavours come out further forward, more dry and bitter flavours will come out further back. So yeah, the base of that back third of your palate, you've got a lovely, smooth oaky character. Once again, it feels that little bit drier. Above that, you've got the barrel too, which is a little bit more. You've got the barrel in there, which the woody character is a little bit drier. Then the spirit layer, as I say, it has a wee bit more of a kind of dry, sort of dry, fudgy type note to it. There's a little bit more peat in it as well. And then you have, and then above that, you have a wee bit more of a kind of, you've got a little bit more. You've almost got like a little bit of a kind of wholemeal brown bready base to it there, and you can feel it's a little bit lighter and more airy. And then above that, you get the more oily kind of brandy, cognac soaked fruit loafy layer. And then above that, you can feel some of the drier brown sugars just capping off the top of the malty side of that. Capping off the top of the malty side of the back 30 palate. And then above everything else, you're getting the yeasty notes. So let's just focus on the yeast. So, the yeasty side of the beer, for me, the yeasty side of things, it has this lovely, more oily, you can feel this like really dense, sweet, wholemeal, brown bready character in there. It is almost, again, so maybe a little bit more reminiscent of the brandy, cognac, soaked fruit loafy type thing. So you can feel that doughy thing just sitting above it all there. That's wrapped very much. It has a little touch of a nutty and woody character to it, of course, too. But it's very much wrapped in this kind of honeycomb. Very slightly toasty, caramelly note. And yeah, the way that this beer goes together in that perspective, the yeasty nature takes a little bit of time to come out of the beer. And it does so the further into the aftertaste that you go. But yeah, the yeasty notes in this one just add a little bit more kind of depth to the beer too. And again, it gets a big thumbs up from me. So the yeasty character is just adding that little bit more depth to the beer. But definitely on the back third of the palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together. And yeah, the way that goes together is really nice. So again, a big thumbs up from me. On the hoppy side of things, as I say, but this one being a Barleywine old ale type thing, and also with it being barley, so a lot of the green component in this beer has dropped out of it over the 14 months it's been in the barrels, and then I'm guessing the can is maybe about 6 months old at this point that I'm drinking it. And incidentally, 6 months is a good amount of time to keep a fresh barley wine in the can and just let it mellow out a little bit. But yeah, you do still have a little bit of green component going on with this beer. In the back corners of the palate, you've got a lovely little touch of smooth earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it's a little bit herbal, and as you reach the front corners of your palate, you get a little touch of a floral aromaticity out of it, but not too much. Round the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and grassy, and you get a little touch of zestiness out of it there, incidentally, as well. And yeah, the way that everything pieces together from the green component itself, it is really nice, and again just adds a bit more depth to beer. But I would say the green component on the sides of your palate is quite oily in this one, and that's just because a lot of stuff has dropped out of it. But yeah, I think we can focus now on the front third of your palate and the more fruity side of the beer. So let's do that. So yeah, for me, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate is kind of similar. Again, you get that little bit of bready build up. You've got a wee bit of a kind of wholemeal brown bready thing in the base, and then a little bit more of a, you've got that wholemeal brown bready thing in the base, and a little bit of a more kind of brandy, cognac soaked, kind of fruit loafy type thing sitting above that. The base of that front third of your palate is once again the the kind of woody character, and at this point in the front third of your palate is very smooth. You've got a little bit of spirit above that, which is really kind of toffee, and it's really very much like toffee, brown sugar, and very slightly nutty at this point. Then you get a little bit of the smooth, you get a little bit of the kind of smooth, kind of brandy soaked, cakey character coming out of this too. So yeah, the way that the beer goes together from that particular perspective is again very, very nice. Then above that you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's look at the fruity side of things just to round off the tasting. So for me, this one at the back of that front third of your palate, it's got lovely big sultana type qualities coming out of it, you know, dry white green grapey characters there. That is absolutely there. You can feel a little bit of dryness coming out of that one as you move further forward. As you reach the very middle of that front third of your palate, you've got a lovely big oily, peary sort of thing coming out of this one. There is a wee bit of a dry apricot underneath, and yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really very, very nice. So you have a little bit of an oily kind of sultana note at the back, a wee bit of dryness in there too, oily pear as you move further forward, wee touch of dry apricot underneath, and then yeah, as you move further forward into the front half of that front third of your palate. I'm just trying to pinpoint what exactly is there. I was picking up little touches of red fruit. I think it was blackcurrant, and yeah, in the aroma it was kind of like blackcurranty, cranberry, and a little touch of fig. Like, you do get a bit more red fruit in the aroma, but in the actual flavour it is more about the pear, the sultana, the apricot, and yeah, when you take the beer in, you get a little bit of a kind of blackcurranty cranberry note, but then yeah, a little bit of that lingers on the very front half of the front third of your tongue, but it disappears quite quickly, as I say. Just a little hint of blackcurrant or something on that very front tip of your tongue almost. But the fruity side of this beer is really nice. It leans more toward that peary, sultana type note the further into the aftertaste that you go. So yeah, that gets a big thumbs up from me. When I think about the flavour profile of this beer, stylistically it has quite a lot of English barley wine character to it. But at the same time, the kind of sweetness and smoothness and stuff of this makes me think a little bit more along the lines of an old ale, which would make sense. But it could just be the characters of both the Fettercairn whiskey and the Golden Promise. Golden Promise has always been a very smooth and kind of biscuity leaning malt, and you know, Fettercairn whiskey being Speyside is quite a smooth, oily, sweet affair. But yeah, beautiful beer this one. As I say, this is, yeah, I think it's fairness, this is my favourite beer that I've had from Newbarns thus far, and I hope they experiment with this a little bit more and consider doing an 80 shillings too light, a 160 shilling type beer. That would be awesome. But yeah, let's round off the review with just a wee look at the mouthfeel. So unquestionably this beer is full bodied. The carbonation is very, very smooth. It's a big, slick, oily beast of a thing, very silky and smooth, as we've said. You'd expect this from a kind of old ale barley wine type thing, but yeah, it's absolutely great. In terms of the IBUs, it's a little bit difficult to say. This beer is it really does not feel bitter at all to me. The focus is of course on the sweeter and oily side of things, but I'm sure that technically speaking it does have a little bit of IBU. I'd be very surprised if it was more than 20. Actually, I think 20 IBUs even seems kind of generous to the rating, to be honest with you. But yeah, we've said a good bit of time with this one that the backbone of the beer, if we move to the maltier side of things, you've got a nice little bit of dryness from the barrel, lovely oily sweetness from the spirit, and a wee bit of a sweet dryness into the aftertaste. The bready character in this one, the sort of cakey, fruit loafy sort of thing, is very smooth. Then you've got the big oily brown sugars just sitting on the top there, which are lovely too. The fruity side of the beer again is very oily, really leaning toward that peary and sultana type kind of thing for me, with just a little tiny hint of red fruit. But the whole vibe of this beer is just big, big, oily and thick. I'd love to have tried the original barley wine that they use for this one, because obviously when you barrel age a barley wine, you are sacrificing a little bit of the mouthfeel to get all these infused flavours. But yeah, this one is great from that perspective. It's really, it really is very nice, and it's definitely the best beer I think I've had from Newbarns so far. But that's personal. I mean, the plain dark beer Barley's is also a very, very strong beer. I just like the big brown sugary things. But yeah, can't compliment this one enough from Newbarns. If you get the chance to try this, I highly recommend that you do. It's awesome. It really is very, very good. A kind of mix of an English barley wine and a sweet old ale is probably a good way to describe this one. But yeah, this was the Scotch wine of barley, a 10.5% barley wine, old ale type beer from Newbarns Brewery in Leith in Edinburgh. My favourite beer that I've had from them thus far, and I do look forward to seeing more like it in the future. But yeah, that was another crazy beer for 10 years here on Rampant Lion Reviews. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Newbarns Brewery as well, and we will return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out Newbarns social media, and I'll catch you guys on another review very, very shortly. Slàinte, Skål.